So, if you change your mind today, does that mean the person you were yesterday was just, I don't know, a fool?
Right. That is the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we have a really fascinating philosophical text in front of us. It's Reflective Humanism number 115.
Mm-hmm.
And the title is, Does Choosing Again Mean Rejecting Who We Were? Revising Decisions and the Structure of Changing Paths.
A great title.
It is, yeah. And our mission here today isn't to, dish out life coaching or motivational advice. Like, that's not what this is.
Right, right.
We are looking at the hidden architecture, the underlying mechanics of why changing our minds feels so incredibly heavy.
Yeah, it really does.
We're talking about those highly recognizable moments, right?
Right.
Like leaving a career you've been building for a decade,
Mhm.
or moving to a new city, or even just abruptly stopping a habit that built your entire morning routine for years.
Or even changing the distance in a close relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a heavy topic because, on the surface, all of those examples look like straightforward logistical decisions about the future. You assess your current coordinates and you plot a course to a new destination.
Right. Simple math.
Simple math. But the reality of human experience is that changing direction almost never feels like simple logistics. It feels,
Emotional.
yeah, emotional. It feels like you are dragging your past self into a courtroom and putting them on trial.
Right. And that is the exact tension we want to unravel today. Why does a shift in our present reality feel like a fundamental betrayal of our past?
Mm-hmm.
To figure that out, we have to look at the invisible gravity that attaches itself to our decisions as time passes.
Mm-hmm.
And the reflective humanism text refers to this as the value of consistency.
Which is important.
Yeah. And, consistency gets a bad rap when we talk about change,
Mhm.
but it's actually a really vital mechanism.
It absolutely is. I mean, if we didn't have a biological and sociological drive toward consistency, society would essentially collapse by Tuesday.
Right.
Consistency is the bedrock of trust, of responsibility, continuity. If you couldn't rely on the fact that your colleagues, your friends, and your family were going to wake up and honor the commitments they made yesterday.
You couldn't plan for tomorrow.
Exactly. We need decisions to stick.
But the text outlines a very specific sequence for how a healthy commitment can sort of curdle into a trap. It maps it out like this. So first, there is a past decision.
Okay.
Over time, that decision integrates into your self-image. Then, your brain starts working to maintain consistency with that new image.
Right.
You begin to actively absorb present discomfort just to protect that consistency. And eventually the path becomes entirely fixed.
Yeah, it's a lock-in effect.
So what is actually happening in our brains that makes us willing to suffer just to stay consistent?
Well, it comes down to cognitive load and something psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
The human brain is designed to conserve energy. Building a cohesive identity, like a story about who you are, it takes a lot of cognitive energy.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So once that story is built, any information that contradicts it feels physically uncomfortable. It's an internal alarm bell. So if you've spent, 5 years telling yourself, I'm a dedicated corporate lawyer,
Right.
and suddenly you realize you hate the law.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That realization threatens the entire architecture of your identity. So to avoid that intense psychological discomfort, your brain simply decides it is easier to absorb the daily misery of the job than to shatter the self-image.
Wow. Okay, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this.
Yeah.
So the longer we stick with a choice, the more the emphasis shifts. It stops being about the external thing, like what I chose.
Yes.
And it completely morphs into an internal identity, like I am the kind of person who chose this.
Exactly. The kind of person.
And that explains the betrayal factor.
Yes.
Because when the action becomes an identity, changing direction isn't just, updating a spreadsheet. It feels like you are rejecting yourself.
Huh.
The consistency goes from being a foundation that supports your life to a cage that totally constrains it.
It does. And that constraint triggers a really dangerous cognitive error. Because we are so rigidly attached to protecting that past self-image, we start to confuse our environment changing with our past judgment failing.
Oh, okay.
The framework points out that we constantly conflate two distinct temporal conditions.
Wait, let's break that down. Conflate two distinct temporal conditions. That sounds a bit academic. What does that actually look like in plain English?
Right, sorry. Basically, we confuse I was wrong back then with this just doesn't fit my life right now.
Oh, I see.
There are two entirely different reasons a choice might change, and they don't have to be at war with each other. The first reason is that the original judgment was genuinely flawed.
like a mistake.
Right, you had incomplete information, there was a misunderstanding, or maybe you just missed a massive red flag. In that specific scenario, revising your choice does involve admitting that the past version of you made an error.
But the second reason has nothing to do with being wrong. Like, the decision made perfect sense under the exact conditions that existed at the time you made it. But time passed. The conditions changed. I mean, the housing market shifted, the dynamics of the relationship evolved, or simply, you grew as a person.
And this is where the trouble starts. When we realize something doesn't fit anymore, the brain's drive for consistency just panics. We take a present-day realization like, this is no longer working,
Yeah.
and we retroactively project it backward, turning it into, it was always a mistake.
Oh, wow.
We rewrite our own history to make it seem like we were foolish from day one.
Which is so unfair to our past selves.
It really is.
I love how the text offers a way out of that trap, though, by suggesting a choice might simply have an expiration date.
That's a great concept.
Yeah. And now, obviously, we're using this carefully as an observational metaphor, not a, universal rule for every major life event.
Right.
But think about milk in your fridge. If you buy milk on Monday and it goes sour by Friday, it doesn't mean you were stupid on Monday.
Right.
The milk was perfectly good on Monday. Your past self made a totally rational choice. But by Friday, the conditions of the milk have changed. It just expired.
That is a great way to separate the past from the present. The landscape shifted. And recognizing that the landscape has shifted completely alters the geometry of how we navigate our next step.
Yeah.
When you realize a choice has expired rather than fail, it destroys the illusion of the backup plan.
The backup plan. Okay, let's get into this, because this concept completely shifted my perspective when I was reading it. Usually, when we think about changing our minds or regretting a decision, we visualize walking down a trail. Let's call it Path A.
Okay, Path A.
We walk for a few miles, we look around, and we decide we don't like Path A.
Yeah.
Intuitively, we think we could just, turn around, hike back to the original fork in the road, and take Path B instead.
Right. We treat unchosen futures as if they're preserved in a vacuum. We assume Path B has just been sitting there, frozen in time, waiting for us to come back.
Waiting for us to finally pick it.
Yeah, but the framework notes that time doesn't work that way. The geometry of human experience only moves in one direction. Once you walk down Path A, you aren't just moving through space, you are accumulating time.
Right, yeah.
You gain skills. You endure failures. You form relationships. Time has already advanced.
Just like we think of Path B as a saved video game file. I mean, if you're listening to this and you've ever fantasized about moving back to your hometown to take that job you turned down 5 years ago, you're probably thinking you can just hit reset.
Just load the save file.
Exactly. You load the file from 5 years ago and start fresh, but you can't reload the file because choosing again isn't going backward.
No.
It's actually a totally new sequence. The present self, who has lived through all the messiness and learning of Path A.
The accumulated self.
Right. That self looks in a new direction
Yeah.
and creates a completely new path. Path C.
And Path C is deeply intimidating.
Oh, terrifying.
Right, because even though logically we know time travel is impossible and we can't go back to Path B, the sheer weight of what we accumulated on Path A creates a massive gravitational pull. We hesitate to step off the trail.
Because of everything we're carrying.
Exactly. Why? The text introduces a powerful structural force here, the desire not to waste the past.
The classic sunk cost fallacy, but applied to our actual lives.
Yeah.
Like, I have come this far, so I have to continue. I mean, if you've ever felt paralyzed in a degree program you hate because you already spent 3 years and thousands of dollars on it, that is the fear of waste talking.
It is.
Long commitments are excruciatingly difficult to leave because you are carrying this heavy backpack of investments. You spent the time, you invested the effort, you gave explanations to your family and friends.
That's a big one.
Right. You accepted responsibilities.
Let's trace the mechanics of that paralysis, though. You have a past investment. That investment generates a profound fear of waste, often driven by loss aversion, which is our psychological tendency to prefer avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains.
We hate losing things.
We really do. Because you want to avoid the loss of the past, your future choices become constrained. We try to recover an unchangeable past by forcing ourselves to sacrifice an otherwise changeable future.
Yeah.
It is the temporal trap. The past is given veto power over the future.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
I want to push back on this idea of waste. Are not wasting the past and allowing the past to determine the future actually the same thing?
Hmm.
Because it seems to me that changing paths doesn't mean you just drop the backpack into a fire. If you spend 10 years as a data analyst and then decide to become, I don't know, a high school teacher, you didn't erase the analytical skills, the patience, or the problem-solving abilities you built over that decade. You just carry that backpack onto Path C.
You're hitting on the exact pivot point of the framework here. We often fail to separate the attributes we acquired from the specific path we are walking.
Oh, interesting.
They are not the same thing. The knowledge, the resilience, the network, those belong to you, not to the path.
Right.
But because we bundle them together, leaving the path feels like throwing away the attributes. If we can separate them, we realize that the past isn't wasted at all. It's simply being redeployed in a new context.
It means we have to fundamentally rethink our definition of a continuous self.
Right.
I mean, normally we think of self-continuity as never changing.
Right.
Like if I am the same person at 40 that I was at 20, I am consistent.
But that is the static view of identity, and reflective humanism aggressively redefines it. Continuity does not mean stasis.
Right.
It does not mean remaining in the exact same state or holding the identical judgments forever. Continuity means remaining connected across time while changing. Think about the statements, I chose A then, and I choose B now.
Okay.
Both of those statements can comfortably belong to the exact same life. The difference between the past self and the present self isn't a contradiction or a hypocritical failure.
It's just the physical trace of having passed through time.
Exactly.
Instead of seeing your identity as a fixed point on a map, like a coordinate that you have to aggressively defend and never move away from, what if identity is a trajectory or an orbit?
I like orbit.
Yeah, the connection between the different versions of yourself, the gradient of how you evolve from who you were then to who you are now, that movement is the continuity.
Let's take that a step further, because this concept of trajectory over a fixed point doesn't just resolve our internal psychology. It dictates how we structure the world around us.
Oh, how so?
Take human relationships, for example.
Okay.
We experience coming closer, moving farther apart, meeting again later in life, changing roles. But culturally, we often view a change in relational distance as a failure.
Right, totally. If two best friends used to talk every single day in college, and now they only catch up twice a year, the immediate assumption is, oh, the relationship broke. They drifted apart.
But if we apply the structure of Path C to this, changing relational distance isn't destroying the relationship.
What is it then?
It's a readjustment of relational gravity under changed conditions. When they were in college, the conditions required daily proximity. Now their lives have shifted. The gravity of the connection naturally recalibrated to maintain a healthy orbit.
Wow.
The relationship didn't break. It adapted.
That makes me wonder then, is a relationship continuous because its form never changes, or because some connection remains possible even as the form changes?
That's the question.
Because if a romance transitions into a friendship, the form is entirely different. The expectations are different. But the trajectory is unbroken. It adapted to the present reality instead of rigidly forcing the past to dictate the present.
That adaptation is the core of systemic health. And what's fascinating is how this scales up from interpersonal relationships to the technology we build, specifically artificial intelligence.
Well, this part of the source material is wild. How do algorithms fit into our fear of changing paths?
Think about the recommendation algorithms that govern our digital lives. Spotify, YouTube, social media feeds. These systems observe us over long periods. They catalog our past choices. The AI learns what you liked, what you clicked on, who you agreed with.
And it feeds it back to you.
Right. And up to a point, that's highly useful. But the underlying mechanism of these algorithms is predictive consistency. The better the AI remembers your past, the more aggressively it risks boxing you into a fixed personality. It creates severe path dependency.
Because the algorithm is optimizing for the person you were yesterday, not the person you might want to become today. I mean, if you've been listening to heavy metal for 3 years and suddenly you feel a pull toward classical music, the algorithm makes it incredibly difficult to find that new path. It keeps nudging you back to the old choices. The machine uses our past data to essentially veto our future evolution.
Precisely. It forces you back to the old fork in the road. It weaponizes your own history against your capacity to choose Path C. which is why the framework argues that AI should not act as an enforcer of personality consistency.
What should it do instead?
It should function as a transparent surface, an atmospheric field that allows us to compare our changed conditions without forcing us to repeat them.
Oh, I see.
Remembering the past should not equal a mandate to return to it.
That is such a crucial distinction. And if we zoom out even further, it applies to human civilization as a whole. A healthy society isn't one that just blindly holds on to its institutions forever without ever amending a single law.
Right, civilizations have their own massive path dependencies. A long-standing institution has immense gravity, built on generations of sunk costs and past investments. If a civilization refuses to change its institutions, it becomes brittle and eventually shatters under the weight of new realities.
But on the flip side, if it changes everything constantly, it loses all predictability and trust, like we were saying at the beginning.
Exactly. So, a healthy civilization is one that can hold stability, but retains the structural capacity to reroute when the conditions demand it. It doesn't view updating a system as a betrayal of its founders, it views it as a necessary adaptation to the present.
Which brings us to the ultimate unresolved question of this deep dive. When we look at our own lives, when we decide to step off the trail we've been hiking for years and forge Path C, are we truly betraying the past self?
Yeah.
Or is the current self simply accepting the history that the past self brought us to, acknowledging all the miles walked, and reselecting the path from a brand new coordinate?
The text doesn't force a neat answer, and honestly, both interpretations remain possible. It depends on how tightly you want to grip that past identity.
Yeah. Well, to end our deep dive today, I want to leave everyone listening with a completely different way to look at this tension. We spend so much time worrying about whether our present choices are betraying our past selves.
You really do.
But think about this. If your current self has the inherent right to rewrite the path, to look at the landscape and choose Path C,
Yeah.
that means the future version of you holds the exact same right over the decisions you are agonizing over today.
Oh, that shifts the burden entirely.
It really does.
Yeah.
You don't have to get it perfectly, rigidly right today. You don't have to make a choice that will perfectly suit you for the rest of your life because you can't predict the conditions of the future. You just have to make the best choice for right now and give your future self the grace and the freedom to choose again.